I told you this Epstein stuff was going to be a big deal, and that it had the potential to cause a great deal of turmoil in the MAGA universe, and that it could potentially cause some people to begin questioning Donald Trump and maybe even to abandon him. Now, I don't want to overblow that. I certainly don't believe that this one thing alone is going to cause, enough people inside the MAGA cult to wake up and abandon Trump that they will all just, that this whole MAGA movement will just dissolve and they'll all turn on Trump. That's not going to happen over this. And maybe for most of them, it will never happen. And I think for most of them, it probably never will. Because we know it's a cult. It's beyond politics. This is not politics for these people. This is a psychological problem with these people, and they have so much invested in Donald Trump, and they have been thoroughly invested in this man for most of the last decade. They have spent every day defending this man, and I did a video about this. I think there's something that happens in your brain, like your brain gets rewired when you not just support someone, but defend them. Defend everything that they do on a daily basis over an extended period of time. I think that's part of what has gone in to creating this cult around Donald Trump. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that tangent. The point is, I am under no illusion that this Epstein thing alone, or maybe even any combination of things, is going to cause most of these people to wake up. But we don't need all of them to wake up. Donald Trump just barely got elected. It was one of the smallest popular vote victories in American history. He is a horribly unpopular person. The political power he has comes from the fact that he has this absolute devotion of a sizable minority of the American people. Now, if we can dent that at all, if we can cause any of those people to abandon him, it's a big deal. It really is. And people are beginning to question him. And if they don't leave him over this, their support of him, and again, not all of them, but some of them, a not insignificant percentage of them, their devotion to him, their support of him may be beginning to soften. They're at least beginning to ask questions. And that is a really positive sign, because we have never really seen that to any great degree. I'm struggling to think of another example of something that's happened, some issue, something he's said or done that has caused people to question him among his base as much as they are now with this Epstein deal. I don't know if there's been another example of this. And there are other things that he has done and said recently that add to it for them. There's lots of things that these MAGAs are not happy with him about. And some of them are beginning to question. And once they begin to question, that is very dangerous to Trump. Because that is what can lead to these cultists waking up. These cultists will never wake up because anyone tries to talk them out of it. You cannot talk sense to them. You cannot win an argument with them. You cannot make them see the light. If they are to wake up and leave this cult, they have to get there on their own. And for some of them to begin asking themselves questions about this man, that is the first step towards waking up, realizing that they're in a cult and getting the hell out. And what's really dangerous about people waking up from this cult for Donald Trump is not just people waking up and leaving, but people who have been lied to and conned. Once they realize it and they admit it to themselves and they get to that place where they can admit it, many of them become very angry at the person who conned them. And oftentimes they become the most passionate critics of the person who conned them. They're angry. They feel betrayed. So who knows? Maybe some of these people will get there. This is an encouraging sign, nonetheless, to see these people begin to question him. And there are a lot of big name, prominent, maybe not big name to normal people, but big name in the MAGA universe, especially in the social media sphere. And don't discount that. Just because they might not be widely known in mainstream sources, a lot of these social media influencers have a lot of sway in MAGA world. I mean, and some of them are just low-life anonymous scum. They go by different made-up anonymous names. They don't even show their real faces on Twitter and stuff like that, but they have huge followings. And some of them, and they're not all anonymous and stuff, but I'm just saying, even just anonymous shit posters can have real power of influence inside the MAGA universe. And there's quite a few of them now who are speaking out against Trump, or at the very least beginning to question over all this Epstein stuff. And the turmoil is inside the administration or the regime itself. There's news out today, you may have seen it, that Dan Bonidiot, aka Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, is now threatening to resign. Or maybe he's not threatening to resign. Maybe he's just been open. I can't remember exactly what the reporting is, whether he's threatened or whether it's just leaked that he's thinking of resigning over this whole Epstein stuff. Apparently he had a blow up with Pam Bondi. Those two don't get along. Bondi, I think, is accusing him of leaking information. I don't know. It's an ugly mess, which I highly encourage. But that's a big deal. As Dan Bongino is an absolute scumbag who made his living, and he I'm sure made a lot of money pushing bullshit lies to the cult. And if he does leave, don't think it's for principle at all. I think that if Dan Bongino resigns, it's because he sees his money, the money drying up, because he's catching all kinds of flack from the MAGA base, because the MAGA base is pissed. They're almost all pissed about the Epstein stuff. Whether they're beginning to question Trump or not, they're not all there. Some of them are. Most of them need a place to direct their anger other than Donald Trump. They don't want to direct it at him yet. So they're directing it at Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And Dan Bongino walked away from a lot of money to go and serve his Orange God King. And he probably figured, hey, I can even make a lot more money if I go and I work for Trump and then I go back into the podcast world. I'll make even more money. I think now he's seeing, holy shit, the MAGA base is turning on me over this Epstein stuff. And I'm not going to have the ability to make a bunch of money off the backs of these morons when I leave this regime, because they're all going to hate me. They're going to blame me for for covering up the Epstein stuff. I think this may all just be calculated on his part. This guy, by the way, I saw a picture. I just saw him on TV a little while ago. Every time I see this guy, it's like his head becomes even more misshapen. Have you seen this guy? It's like if you friggin' repeatedly dropped a potato out of a third floor window, just over and over, just dropped it down there over and over and over again. And that's what his head looks like to me. The guy, I don't know how a human being can be alive with, what does the brain look like inside? What kind of shape is his brain inside that skull? Is it all like bumpy? It's like the shape of his head. All right, that's all right. Probably shouldn't be commenting too much on his head shape. Detracts from the point. The point is, I don't think that this would be principled if he resigns. It has anything to do with principle. I think it's just that he sees that he's getting sideways with the MAGA cult. They're blaming him. He can't have that. He needs a career after. This was supposed to make him even more money when he left. So I think he's gonna, if he resigns, he'll make some pronouncement, maybe just throw Pam Bondi under the bus. The MAGA cult is already turning on her. Just blame it all on Pam Bondi. I wanted to release all this. It's Pam Bondi. I don't want to be a part of this cover-up. And then he could leave, get the hell out of this, and he could maybe be a hero once again to the MAGA cult, and then realize his ambition of making even more money than he was making before he went into the regime. That's what I think it would be about if he resigns. Because, he was on TV not too long ago on Fox News with Kash Patel, and he said that there is that Epstein committed suicide. There's no conspiracy. He's seen everything. All those conspiracies that he himself pushed as a podcaster for years. There was nothing to it, and that pissed off the cult. He can't have that. But by the way, did you see that they're now saying that the video footage of Epstein in prison outside his cell has been edited? There's a minute missing, apparently. And you could tell from the metadata that it has been highly edited. So that's a big deal. This thing is not going away, hopefully not going away anytime soon. This is doing a great deal of damage, and we need to keep it front and center. I know we're all furious over many of the things that this regime is doing. The kidnappings and all the stuff that's going on in California and on so many fronts. It's so many things that are outrageous that we should be talking about. But we must also not lose sight of this Epstein stuff, because this hurts Trump. And this is where we need discipline. We need to focus on the things that hurt Trump and MAGA, and not fall into the trap of only talking about the things, outrageous and illegal and authoritarian as they are, that actually help him. Trump wants us to be talking about those disgusting raids of farms, rounding up, migrant farm workers in California. As awful as those images are, that's what Trump wants us to be talking about, because the base loves that. For us to do real damage to this man, we need to turn as many people in his base against him. Focusing on what ICE is doing, as important as it is, that story only helps Trump, because the cult supports that. The Fox News audience supports it. So that will do no political damage to Trump. The Epstein stuff, though, that has much more potential for doing real damage to Trump, because his base does not support all that. And they are beginning to ask serious questions, and we need to do everything we can to keep this story alive, to get as many more of these MAGAs to begin asking questions for themselves, so that maybe more and more of them can begin to wake up. That's the hope, anyway. Keep at it. Never surrender to this. All right. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.